Welcome back to Different Walk Serious Talks, where thoughtful conversation meets real life perspectives. We come from different backgrounds and are at different stages of life, so we don't always see eye to eye, hence the name. But every conversation stays authentic and respectful. So pull up a seat and join the conversation. You're back here with myself, Jessica, Autumn, Keisha, and Farah. Today, we're going to be talking about the Black church and the community. We're going to be talking about hypocrisy that we might see, the Black churches and LGBT communities. What do you think the church is doing well, and what could we be doing better? And our thoughts on prosperity gospel. Does anybody want to start with their thoughts?
I love church. I need it in my life. I can't live without church. That's it so far.
Okay. Um, I, for one, I'm very much on the fence about church itself. I believe in God. I believe that I love having the message, but sometimes going to church can be detrimental, and I've had experiences myself that have been very negative in the Black church. Obviously, I am not part of any other community, so I can't say, about other community churches, but I've had very negative experiences in church, but I was also in church throughout my childhood. So, a lot of that did shape a lot of ideas and things that I have. But this morning I watched church on TV. I would very much rather watch it on TV than go into the church, right now, where I am right now in life. But that is very much having to do with, again, my, experiences that I've had, but I want to get the word. I read my Bible every day. Um, I make sure to, if I can't physically read it, I listen to it. So I listen to the audiobook on my way to work every single day, so that I understand what the word says, and what, um, what type of life I should be living as somebody who does believe in God. So I this is a very controversial subject, but to me, not being on the same page with churches in our community does not equate to not believing in God. So that's definitely something I want to make sure that people understand, is that just because we have issues with the Black church in communities, that doesn't negate our belief in God.
I feel like you're making a very important distinction, and I'm glad that you made it. Taking issue with the church or the institution of church slash religion doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't a believer. So I think that's an important distinction to make. I would love to hear more on what you mean by you rather watch it on TV than actually physically go. Where does that come from? Is it like a safety thing? Like, how
Yeah.
does that happen
Um,
in your mind?
so I had very negative experiences when I was very young, in the church that I was in, and I do want to also make the distinction. It's not all churches, right? So it did come from the church that I went to. Um, there were things going on there that should not be going on in a church, obviously. Um, and I felt like the things that were said were not things that were of God. And I would ask questions, and I would be told, just listen. So I would ask questions for clarity, and oh, don't worry about that, sort of thing. And I felt like that, like I'm supposed to be asking questions for clarity. You are the shepherd. You are supposed to be leading and guiding. So, and then of course, like, other things happened over time where I was like, you know what, I'm not coming back here. Um, and I did start going to another church later on in life, and around that time, I was with somebody who was very much believer as well. And through going to that church, I realized that there's the prosperity gospel, which I hadn't heard of up until that point. And we saw, like, people requesting, like, that you give more than 10%, you need to give to believe in God. Like, the 2 things were, like, equated with each other. If you don't give, then you, obviously don't believe, and you're not gonna be blessed, which is insane, right? That's not what the Bible says. So,
Your faith could
things
be
like
measured in money, is what they were telling you.
exactly. So one does not
Interesting.
equate the other. And so that sort of got me into a different direction as well. Like, I this is not what I want to do. This is not the way that I want my belief to go. And of course, I was then, went on a different path, and although I've always believed in God, it wasn't until recently that I got back into, like, I need to be reading my Bible. I need to be asking God for the things that I want, and also, you know, praying about the things that I want guidance for.
What's the difference between church and prosperity gospel?
So prosperity gospel focuses on a thought process that the word has specific directions for prosperity. And that in itself isn't a bad thought process, because the word does have a thought process within it that God is going to make you prosper. You shouldn't have to worry about you shouldn't worry about where something is going to come from. You believe, you have faith, and he will make you prosper as long as you are believing in him, right? And that can come from different forms of things. But what has become a thought process is that prosperity gospel focuses on you giving specifically to the church, and then you will get it back. And even when you don't have it, you give to the church. They're asking you to give more and more and more and more.
Give your
And
last
so these
dime because you have faith. God will take care of you.
exactly. And
But I thought
so
with
these
tithes that it's not just about giving monetarily. It could be service or whatever you have to
yes.
give. So even if you have to cook for somebody, then that's part of giving. Or if you have to clean for somebody, that's part of service. I thought that
And
tithes
that's
were
why
about when
prosperity
you do have to
gospel
give.
And that's why prosperity gospel is becoming such almost like a four-letter word in our community, because with prosperity gospel, these are pastors who are owning planes, who have Mercedes, who have boats, who have these churches that they put gold fixings all over the place, and they're like, well, it's you're going to be blessed. Yes, you are going to live in poverty right now, but you continue to give to me, and you're eventually going to be blessed for it. And so the thought process is you need to just keep on giving to the church regardless of what you have. And so and these pastors are not using it for like the good of God. They're using it for their own gain. And that is giving a very bad name to the Black church. So
Like that video that Drewski put together, that skit that got people in a
Oh
tizzy.
yeah, that
That's
was
actually,
funny, but
yeah,
not
it was
funny.
funny. Funny but
Funny,
not
but
yeah.
funny.
not funny.
So some of that was just normal jokes, right? But some of that was having to do with prosperity gospel, which again, it does go into a whole different realm. And prosperity gospel in and of itself, the thought process isn't bad. It's when people use it for something bad. When pastors use it to go and buy a Mercedes, and then like just keep on asking their constituents to give and give and give, and aren't opening soup kitchens, aren't trying to give back to the community with that money, because that's really like that is part of the church's calling. And if you read through the Bible, the church has certain things that they're supposed to be doing. So if they're not doing those things with the money that's coming in, that's a real and an evident problem. So I'm not a pastor, but there are things that the Bible very clearly outlines.
So you guys watching at home don't know this, and Autumn might not even know this either, but Jessica Fair and I went to the same church for some time. And I will say one thing that Pastor said that stuck with me all these years was that if your pastor doesn't have a profession, that's a problem. He said your pastor should have a job. Okay, if he's just making his money by leading the church and he don't do nothing else, he was like, that's not good. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So our pastor, he was an electrician. He had a whole job outside of the church. And he showed up on Sunday, sometimes twice on Sunday. And I will always respect him for that. I always am very suspicious of pastors whose income comes solely from the church. um I'm just always automatically suspicious, and I don't know if there's anybody that can give me a good example that'll shake that suspicion of mine. I think your pastor should work. If he's not, then what are we doing? In my
So
opinion, I feel strongly
I
about that.
do have a counter to that. I
Okay,
think it
let me hear it.
depends on what the church is doing. So if the church is giving back to the community, if that other job is the fact that he is gathering other people around him to give back to the community, I
Like
think
he has
that
a
that
nonprofit,
yeah, like he has a
so he
nonprofit,
has a
or
job.
the community has
So he has a
exactly.
job
It's like
outside of just preaching. We're saying the same
yeah,
thing because you could work at a
yes.
nonprofit.
Well, the
That's
nonprofit
still a job
is the
though.
church. So it doesn't have to be a structured nonprofit because the church technically a lot of times will form it'll be a nonprofit itself. But if they're giving back to the community, if they are counseling young couples and they are making sure that that they have a youth ministry, and they're doing all of these things for the community around them to make the community better, then that makes sense to me because they are all of their time is allocated towards the church uplifting that community, right? They don't have to me, necessarily have a complete outside job. If that church is being integrated into that community properly, then that'll take a lot of time and effort, and that is the job. Now, if all they're doing is they've got a Sunday service and they've got an early morning service, and then they've got one thing on Tuesday night, kind of like what our church was, no, it doesn't really make sense for them to not have some sort of outside job, right? They're not allocating all of that time to the church being part of that community. But in certain churches that I have seen, the pastor is on sort of a payroll because there is a youth ministry. They are setting up counseling for marriages. They're setting up counseling for not just youth, but anybody else in the community. They're setting up soup kitchens. They're making sure that you are able to come in and have church in basically every piece of your life that you can, and they're uplifting the community with it. So I do think that can be a separate job.
Think yes, that can be a separate job, but it really needs to be a job. Is that pastor putting in 40 plus hours a week? I'm gonna tell you right now, I do 40 plus hours on average. It's very rare that I actually just do 40 hours, right? And I get paid per the hour and I'm compensated okay. When I was salary, which sometimes could be a scam too, but that's a different episode. When I was salary, I was working well over 40 hours because I'm on call 24/7. Anything that went wrong, my phone was blowing up. Now, if this pastor's job is giving back to the community and he's putting in maybe 20, 30 hours a week, but he's still getting all this money from the church as if he's working 40 plus hours, he can own a private plane, he has a yacht, he has several homes, but he's only working 20, 30 hours a week. I'm going to take issue with that. I'm absolutely going to take issue with that. So if he's only working 20 hours a week, then he should get paid for those 20 hours a week. Not enough to have two, three homes and his congregation is suffering. Not enough where he has a yacht or a private plane. He can't fly commercial like the rest of us. You know, he got to fly private, but he's only working 30 hours a week. To me, that's crazy, Pam. I just feel like they should be held to the same standard as the same people in their congregation. And if you're going to treat the church like, even if for a nonprofit, which is still a business, if you're going to treat the church like a nonprofit business, then it still needs to have the same structure as a nonprofit business, right? And when I look at corporations, I don't think the CEOs, I don't think it's right, fair, ethical for the CEOs to be making 500 times more than the lowest paid employee, right? That's not equitable. It's not fair. It's not right. So the church should be very much the same. If your pastor is living in the lap of luxury and is only working maybe 20 hours a week, but most of the people in his congregation are struggling to get by, to me, I don't think there's any way you can clean that up and make it righteous or good, you know? So if he's working outside of the church to better the community, is he putting in the same amount of hours as the people in his congregation that he's asking to give? Even more maybe the last time? I feel like that's something we have to take a good hard look at. And if you feel like there's some type of disparity there, then I can't imagine God is pleased. I couldn't imagine in any sense of the gospel that I've read. I can't imagine he's pleased with that.
If God loves a cheerful giver and the pastor is rich and his people are poor, then isn't there some type of judgment that God will pass because the pastor's not a cheerful giver?
Right? Because I thought it said in the Bible that it is easier for a camel to pass through the head of a needle, right, than for a rich man to enter heaven. So why is your pastor rich? Why is your pastor rich and everybody's okay with it?
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for a pastor to be rich if his congregation is flourishing as well. It's if the congregation isn't flourishing, then you should probably take a hard look because he's part of the community and the community is supposed to come with you. So
Uh-huh.
if the pastor's rich and he's actually helping for the congregation to become rich as well and flourish, then I believe that's okay because the church that I go to right now, I'm not going to name it. I do love the church though, and I'm sure the pastor knows what I'm talking about. I think he's actually a really good pastor. Sometimes I'm not sure about some of the people he brings on, but him himself, he's a bishop, I believe. And it's not exactly Baptist. I think it's some celebration, which I'm not fully sure what that means to tell you the truth. But some of the messages I really resonate with, even when it's the guest pastor, and some of them I don't. But the pastor himself, or the bishop himself, excuse me, I believe that he truly wants his congregation to flourish and that he truly wants to spread the word. He's a really good person. Like, even if sometimes I'm not sure about his congregation and some of the things they do, because I'm sure I've mentioned before that part of his congregation made me feel terrible that I'm not married, but it isn't for them to judge me. So I've let that go. And the bishop himself, I do believe that he actually wants everyone to flourish. Now, again, I'm not fully sure because I'm not God, I'm not Jesus, and I can't judge anything that he does. But from what I do see, I think he's actually trying to help.
And that's a beautiful thing. Autumn, at some points you were shaking your head though. What are your thoughts? What you thinking over there, girl?
I like to go down the rabbit hole with this mess. Can somebody give me the definition behind church? What is church?
I
What's
think
what
church is supposed to be a place of fellowship where people gather to speak the word of God and ask questions and come to an understanding. It doesn't necessarily have to be a building. It could be a tent. It could be a place that you meet in public. It can be anything as long as you come together to congregate and fellowship with the word of God.
how was religion created and
That
why?
I don't know, but I'm sure you're going to tell us.
All right, we are spiritual beings, right? From onset, okay? This go way back, like the beginning of time. We as human beings worshipped the sun, moon, earthly things, right? To just make sense of what was going on around us. Okay. And fast forward to now. We are many gods. Every last one of us are many gods. And I see religion as a tool of control among the masses, right? This is where laws come from and other things that's created to control human beings. I don't consider myself a religious person. I consider myself a spiritual person because I have a spirit. Religion was man-made. So I was just sitting back and listening to everybody's, idea of religion and church. And, everybody's opinion is, it's without merit. I really can't speak on the topic because I don't consider, like I said, I don't consider myself religious. I like to go deep into why things are the true meaning, the true meaning by about why things are. I did try to get into church. I tried to experience different factions and sections of religion. Be it Buddhism, Christianity, Catholicism. So yeah, you got different aspects, different factions, different sections. And all of it is to praise something outside of ourselves. And what we're looking for is really internal. But we've been taught, we've been indoctrinated to look outside of ourselves for help and influence over our lives. And now religion has turned into, I believe, a shit show. If it's being used against us. For instance, the topic that we're speaking about, the prosperity gospel. I don't know if the white community churches are experiencing the same thing as black community um, churches, but there's a whole lot of hypocrisy going on um, in the teachings, uh, and the do as I say, not as I do. You know, when it comes to religion, the prosperity gospel, if you will, it is a tool I see to siphon more resources out of a community that is already at a deficit, okay? And I don't see it getting any better. It's only going to get worse. But I'm behind shedding light on this hypocrisy, this this leeching of the black community when it comes to gospel rhetoric, this gospel prosperity gospel. You know, where do we go from uplifting, our community to you got to pay, to get blessings? God
I mean,
is a
I think
just God.
that's always been it though. I
God,
think that's always been part of how humanity um tries to use faith against each other. And so
Yeah.
when you said that we've been indoctrinated to look outside ourselves, I would I would push back against that because God is in all of us, right? So if God is in us, we are being indoctrinated to look outside of us to look for something else. Where a lot of people are looking for the worldly things to try to figure out what God is or what gospel is and um try to make sense of the things that are in the Bible because some of the stuff I mean it I've been reading through because I decided to read just from the beginning of the Bible, right? I was like, all right, I'm gonna go from Genesis all the way to the end. God is gangster, like he is gangster. So when one of the some of the things that when I was listening to the sermon for the one for what I was for the church I attended this morning, one of the things that he said was so like it stuck in my mind. He said, "The devil is the only one who's ever been blacklisted from heaven." Why would you listen to him? God decided to let all of us in except the devil. He's the only one who's ever been blacklisted. But we want to listen to him over everything else that we're seeing that we're told to believe, which is God just said, "Believe in him," and that's it. Believe in me and have faith and that's it. That's it. That's all you need to get in. Now,
If God is
after
a
you have
merciful God,
faith,
how come he won't forgive the devil?
the devil is choosing to go in the other direction.
Oh, so he's
So he's
still
how
choosing. He
blacklisted
was the
won't even
Bible
try?
created?
because he's choosing. Yeah,
Okay,
it's a
the
choice.
Bible
It's a
is a
choice for all of
man-made
us.
the Bible is a man-made book.
It
Okay,
is confusing because I read Songs of Solomon and God isn't mentioned not one time in that whole Songs of Solomon.
So these are not number one, the Bible that we have right now is not all the books that were written and included. And then number two, these are stories of the things that happened during those Bible days. One of
stories,
the things that I think is misunderstood by many people is the entire Bible is not God speaking. The entire Bible, it's talking about stories where people were spoken to, and then the events that were surrounding the people who were spoken to by God.
What about when Jesus
And
was
so
talking? It's in red.
and then there's Jesus who's talking. That's what I'm saying. So the entire Bible, we're talking about when before Jesus even came, when God was speaking to people, when prophets were around, when he put kings in power. when so many things are happening. But if you look at things that happen, there's a story where um a man had a concubine she ran away from him. She went back to her dad's house. Her father took her. He came to go get her, and her father's is serving him all that. There's some guys who came to her father's house because he wasn't in a good part of town, and wanted to rape her husband, right? The concubine's husband who came to get her. The father decided to say, no, I'd rather send out my daughter or the concubine rather than you raping this man, because I don't think that's right.
So
Now,
it's
this is
better to
not
rape a girl
something.
than a boy?
No, that here's the thing. Here's the crazy part about that. People will say, "Well, that's in the Bible, so that's the word of God." Is that what they're saying? Is that it's better to rape a woman? No, because there's a whole nother part before that that tells you exactly what's going to happen if you rape a woman. You will be struck down, right? But it's telling you what happened during this time. That does not make it right. It makes it part of the story. Because after that, after all of this, so the end part of that story is that they said no, whatever, and then he ended up sending the concubine out. She got raped and she died. And in the morning, her husband came and her husband was leaving the house. He sees her on the ground. He didn't even say, "Oh my God, are you okay?" He just says, "Come on, let's go." Because he didn't really realize that she's down there dead. She made it to the doorstep of the house. She's down there dead. And instead of realizing that she's dead, he cuts her up into 7 pieces and mails her and to different parts. And then um they rise up against, and the reason why this is important is that makes them rise up against different colonies, and it starts a war. So here the important part was the war that got started. And he says, oh, he doesn't say, "Oh, I put her out there for them to go rape her." He says, "They came for me and they abused her." He talks about the thing that happened to her, not the fact that you put her out there. And so there's a lot to be said about that, but it is in the Bible. That does not make it so that it's that the Bible is saying that is a good thing for it to happen. That's not what the Bible is saying. But books in the Bible are used as if it's saying that everything that it contains is a good thing, but it's not. It literally says before that you shouldn't be raping women, and that you should be put to death if you do.
So do all the men that rape her get put to death?
It doesn't talk about whether something happens to them. I don't believe, if I remember correctly. But after he goes and mails her body parts, they end up going to war because of all the things that happened. So
So here's my thing.
again,
If you're not supposed to indulge in certain TV shows or certain books because they're ungodly, but then you go and read stories like this in the Bible, what makes it so different?
Bible is just a book. It's just a tool. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But I believe this tool was used against us. Okay. In so many different reasons. It makes no sense to go deep into this tool that, that is used, that can be used against us.
One
All
of the
right.
things that I definitely take issue with, Autumn, is because, and I agree with you, because one of the things that definitely always stands out in my mind is how were Black people introduced to the Bible as we know it
Slavery.
How
now.
were we?
And I'm not talking about like the Ethiopian Bible that actually predates, whatever we have circulating right now. But yeah, slavery. The way we were introduced to King James version was through slavery. That's how we come to know
And we
it.
wasn't taught everything. They pulled pieces of whatever they wanted us to know,
Mhm.
and that's what was fed to us. So we
Mhm.
don't know. Our ancestors did not know the full Bible. They were taught certain scriptures to make them submit and other things. So this is a whole this right here, this is a big black rabbit hole to go down. Okay? So you right, Keisha. Let's just stick to the church because the biblical aspect of it, we could be sitting here for
I
hours.
mean, it's very hard to
Can you go
divorce the
more down
church
that path,
from the
Keisha?
Bible,
Because I
though.
want to hear more about that. The Ethiopian Bible versus the King James.
Well, I probably have to do some research. I have to do some research and I can send it to you separately. But there is a Bible that predates the King James Version.
Hmm.
The oldest Bible, if I'm remembering correctly, is the Ethiopian Bible. And even if you look at like some of the earliest depictions of Jesus, he is a very dark skinned man, right? So in the Ethiopian Bible, he looks more like us than what we have on most church walls now. His earliest depictions, he is a black man. And that Ethiopian Bible is, as far as I know, it's actually complete, but we don't necessarily see it. So
How come we
I'll have
don't
to,
see it in black churches?
because we didn't inherit that Bible. That's not the Bible that was passed down or introduced to us. And I think that is very intentional because if you look at other cultures, right, the gods that they worship look just like them. And the exception to that is in the black church, right? Like if you look at what Buddhists,
Muhammad,
yeah,
Muhammad
if you look at
and
Muslims, if you look
Yep,
at their
the
God looks like
Indian.
that. And that's very empowering to look at a religious figure and see yourself in that.
Yep.
Black people aren't given that, and I believe that was very intentional because the way that we were introduced to modern day Christianity was through oppressive means. It was used as a tool to ingrain and indoctrinate us to believe that we are lesser than. That's why the God that we receive, the Bible that we've been given, we don't get to see ourselves in it. Because if you actually look like God, how can you be okay with being oppressed? How can you be okay with being in chains when you can see yourself in God? Deep
They
down,
don't
you
want
would
to. They
know
didn't
it's
want
not
us to.
right.
They didn't want to see how godly we were. So they
Exactly.
needed to do what they did to us to keep us oppressed and to continue to do what they was doing to us.
Exactly.
Or our
We were being
ancestors.
taught that we were less than, and
Yes.
they backed that up with the Bible. They backed it up with church. And if you look at how, colonialism conducts itself, they do a couple of things first. When they go into a land that they want to exploit, they make sure they set up some type of security, right? They make sure they have their guns. They also make sure that there's churches and there's schools. It's a part of the indoctrination. We make sure that we can overwhelm you with force. And if that's not enough, we're going to trick you, we're going to indoctrinate you, and we're going to oppress you with these teachings. So when I think about the history that comes into Black churches, um, I can't separate that with present day Black churches and past day Black churches. You know what I'm saying? I have a very difficult time separating the two. I've been in a lot of different um, community organizations that are about like um, grassroots, making sure that we are fighting oppression, that we're fighting for social justice. I think that's the way I should put it. I've been in a lot of social justice groups, and in most of those groups, the people in there look like me. And we've also had churches come together and we work together for different community outreach, community involvement, and giving back opportunities. And we've had people that were in those churches and in our groups. They visited both. And we had one young lady that knew how we got introduced to the Bible. She also knew how it's been used as a manipulative tool for oppression, brainwashing, all these things. But what she said to us was, nobody else supports me like the Black church does. So even though I know it's wrong, who else can I turn to?
Hmm.
So she was wishing, hoping that our outreach groups, our grassroots would be able to give her the same level of support and community and camaraderie as the church does. But until then, she's going to stick to the church, even though she understands that the origin of it and some of the exploitive measures It's pretty messed up. She's like, but what else do I have? And when she said that to me, I couldn't fault her in that sense because I absolutely get it. But it also made me sad because I wish we had that. I wish we could compete with the level of resources and community. Because every single like grassroots group that I've been in has always been very small. It's always come from people being very passionate about what's going on around them. And you're starting like at college campuses. College students aren't known for having the most money, you know? So I understand what she's saying. But at the same time, it just makes me a little bit sad because even when you know it's not necessarily good for you, it's like you're trapped. Like, what other options are there? So I think that's why
I kind of
my
feel like I can kind of feel like that. So in being introduced in that manner, I think they tried to do something that they were not successful, and that so they tried to indoctrinate us to make us feel like God didn't look like us. But if you actually read the Bible and read, they can't remove from the Bible what Jesus looked like, right? So it it gives you depictions of him, like it writes
With
how
his
he
woolly
looks,
hair.
and he doesn't with
mhm.
woolly hair, yeah, and dark skin. You can't say that he looks like what we say a white person looks like, right? Um, and then you
But does
read
your
through,
church teach you that? How many
yes.
churches teach that?
So many churches teach that, and not only do they teach that, if you read the Bible yourself from the beginning, and I'm talking about like very early on the Bible, and this is before the New Testament, because things changed a little in the New Testament, but one of the things that you see over and over and over in the Old Testament is that you do not worship graven images. We don't worship graven images. We worship God. And it tells you not only do we not worship graven images, in like before the New Testament, he didn't even want us making any graven images. There was, there when a graven image came about, he was like, all right, strike down all them people. Because I already told you, we don't worship graven images. You worship me. I'm it. And so and then even, most of the Old Testament is talking about Israel specifically, and he's leading God's people, and he says over and over, like, when you're meeting all these other gods, you don't focus on them. I don't care. Don't even bring somebody in here that is trying to worship those other gods. And so one of the things that I think that is the reason why it was so unsuccessful for us to be indoctrinated is because if we actually read the Bible, and this is once we were able to read, right? So they tried to block our ability to read, but once you read through the Bible, you see what the actual word says. And yes, much of it was removed, not just for us, right? I feel like it was removed so that the church had more power. And yes, the Ethiopian Bible has more books and gives you a fuller picture, but still, really, if you get down to the bones of it, he's saying over and over in the Bible, all you got to do is believe in me. Like, just all that other stuff is all noise, but all you have to do is believe in me. And so I get what you're saying, is that this is how we were introduced to it. But there's a lot of things that we are introduced to, and that are used like really badly. They're used incorrectly. We talked about feminism, right? That was
Mhm.
one of our previous episodes. We talked about feminism, about how people mistake feminism for misandry, right? Just because somebody uses something for their own means, right? People use actual feminism and say, no, you're just women who hate men. Well, the church, people are using this, right? People are using the church to say, no, you have to do this, and no, I'm going to hate you because it says in the Bible that you should be doing this. These people aren't people who actually believe in God and follow him.
So
Just
how
because they
did
use
religion
it
separate from
doesn't
so
mean that
many
they're doing it.
different? So originally it was Catholic, right? So how did it become to be so many different types of religion? It wasn't originally
Catholic was
Catholic?
not. No,
I'm blown. Maybe it's just because I was Catholic first.
no,
So tell me,
no.
how did How, if they were indoctrinated by white people in the first place, how did the black church come about?
The black church came about because of slavery. The modern day black church came about because of slavery. You would They would teach gospel that encouraged black people to listen to their masters, to be submissive, to be humble. Those are the parts that were preached to black people. And then they were allowed to have a day of rest because of, what is said in the Bible, that you're allowed to have one day of rest. And on that day, black people could come together, not have to be terrorized and worked to the bone, and they could go ahead and have church. And from there, that tradition continued. And I
So
think
how
that,
did it go from us not being terrorized to pastors terrorizing their churches?
well, that I think is a good psychology question, because oftentimes you will see people that have been the victim of something take on the characteristics of their abuser. It's a learned behavior. And even though maybe some part of them even hates it, they still emulate it. Before therapy was ever really a big thing, I just had to sit with it. And I was like, that's pretty messed up. But why did I do it? Because that's what I was taught. It was a learned behavior. So I think really at the end of the day, it's a psychology thing. So even though they were terrorized back in the day, they learned it and now they turn around and do it to others. It's a learned behavior, and it doesn't necessarily make it okay or excuse it. And I'm not saying all churches are like that, but I think what brought us to this topic was we've seen that there's too many churches that are like that, where they use these same tactics that were used against them on their own flock now. And I will say right now that if your church doesn't have a food kitchen, doesn't have a people's closet or a free closet, your kids are going back to school and you can't feed them, you can't clothe them, your church doesn't offer you support, I take issue with that. In
I
my mind,
think
are you really a
the
church? Or are
government,
you more like a social club? Are you a
the
social
government,
club or are you church?
the government also plays into what services can be and can't be provided. They're nonprofit, right? So that means, where do they get their money from? Where do most churches get their money from? They can't raise all the money needed to run the churches. All these churches out here, they're not making enough money off of the congregation to run the churches successfully. You got to keep the lights on. You got to pay the rent for the building. So the government is probably cutting checks to subsidize some of the stuff that they don't have the monies for, right? So I'm pretty sure somewhere because back in the day, what, in the 50s and 60s, you had the civil rights uh um era, right? And a lot of churches was, and we saw it, we read about it, we they was ingrained in the black community. We saw a lot of the churches come together with the food kitchens, and Auntie Sarah ain't got enough money for the electric bill. The pastor could write out a check to help her pay for the electric bill for that month. Not so more. Those services are minimal now. They're
Yeah.
very minimal now, and it's kind of sad. And I believe a lot of black churches has been bought by the government in some
So,
form or
and
fashion.
I wanted to look because as far as I know, most churches just get tax exempt status as long as they register as a church. And then the only government grants there are for social services are for humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and community development for like playground improvements and infrastructure.
Hmm.
So far and beyond, most churches do actually operate off of the income from either, and I know there are some churches that operate off the income from the pastor, which, like we were talking about, like we went to a church, and he operated a lot of the church's income from the income that he brought in personally, and then a lot of them do bring in from the congregation, and some of them do invest some of that money, and then they take out from those proceeds. And so, and I know there are quite a few churches who do community development with local local businesses. So they solicit local businesses to provide certain products. If you're talking about like providing community services, all right, well maybe Procter and Gamble is in my community. Can I solicit them for soap and feminine products and all sorts of things so I can make bags to give out to the community? So that is one of the ways that churches do provide for communities. Now, am I to say that absolutely none of them are bought out by the government? I don't believe that that's the case. I do think there are some that do take different tax exemptions or do certain things so that they can keep a certain status and they are in essence bought out to support certain things that are not godly. Now, I do think that, like she was saying, churches should be able to support that community. I mean, we talked about it when we first started this. Um, do we see hypocrisy? Absolutely. As in any part of life, we see hypocrisy because there are people who live a certain way, and then they talk about the Bible that does not talk about what they're actually doing. So the Bible will tell you love your neighbor, right? Regardless of who they are, we gonna love them. You don't have to be around them because it tells you to get thee away from fools, right? You don't have to be around them, but you gotta love them. And if you love somebody, you're not gonna wish for them to die. You're not gonna wish for them to have bad things done to them. But is that how people conduct themselves? No. No, because they're not actually talking about the Bible. Like you said, they're using the Bible as a tool because they know that it holds power in people's minds. And so misuse of something doesn't mean that the tenets of it don't exist and that they're not right. I do think that people misuse the Bible. I do think that people um try to exert control over other people because of certain things that you see in the Bible. But like I said, there are a lot of things in the Bible that are part of stories, and people use that. People use the fact that it is part of a story that is being told around, like parables, right? Like I think of many of those stories as parables. We're supposed to learn something from it and understand the underlying reason for what was happening. I've been, I, I get. I was telling Fair that I've been getting some burnout because most of the first books of the Bible are all war. War. It is war upon war, like it's a lot of war. And so if you take a lot of that, you can use that against somebody, right? You can use all of that, all the violence that happens against somebody. And you can perform like you can think about it and you could have all this stuff in your mind that just isn't true. And then you can bring somebody into that narrative. And I think that's what happens, and we have the black churches who, like I said, like the what I was talking about what happened with the woman that was sent out for the men. They say, okay, well, you remember that story in the Bible. That's why we shouldn't be gay. Rather than somebody raping a man, women should be raped. I've actually seen somebody take that narrative. But that's not what the Bible actually says. So people take these stories in the Bible, they misuse them.
It's not
They
misuse.
make them
Everybody,
seem they are.
no, it's not misuse.
Interpret's
Everybody,
different.
interprets,
Interpret.
interpret.
There's no
Okay.
way to interpret something that actually is said and then like so it actually literally says something and then you are using that story to say, "Well, I know it says that, but I don't think that that's the case because that story exists."
Okay. Like, okay. So the thing about submission, all right? Ben loves this word submission. It comes from the Bible. Okay. Now, the way the men see the word submission will be different from the way women see the word submission. That's a form of interpretation. Okay. So everybody's going to interpret. You can give the Bible to 10 different people, right? And you're going to have 10 different interpretations of the Bible. Yes, the Bible will say,
Yes.
don't do this, X, Y, Z, yada, yada, yada. But if they don't have the comprehension or
It's
the
not
knowledge
comprehension,
to
it's selective
interpret
listening.
what, huh?
It's not comprehension, it's selective listening. So if
Well,
you select this
but
piece of the
everybody is,
Bible
that's what I'm saying.
and decide
Everybody is different. I understand where you're coming from, Jess. I really do. Just like, okay, you can give the same Bible to a Muslim person. They gonna interpret it the way they see fit for them. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so the way you interpreted the Bible is not gonna be the same as the way Joe Blow up the street gonna interpret it. Just like the white people will pull certain things and interpret the Bible a certain way. We gonna see it and interpret it in another way, and that's just the facts of reality. Everybody's got a different story, so
But
this
isn't that
is a
how
tool.
factions came about and how there's different religions? Because some people do see it separately and some people
Exactly.
see it the same.
Yes. Yes. They have pulled different parts of this tool, and they applying it the way they need to, or see fit to whatever their ideology, theology, whatever they worship or how they worship. Yes. So that's what I was talking about. So yes, Jess, you're saying that this particular story is about, okay, the rape, or you're not supposed to do reality, you know, but somebody else is going to look at that differently. You see what I'm saying? So everybody's going to use this tool. You got a hammer. Everybody's not going to use the hammer the same way. Okay.
I think that's a good a good parallel that you draw. Just because somebody misuses a hammer doesn't mean we don't need hammers, right? You're not going to say, let's throw out all the hammers in the world.
But
People
I'm
are
not saying
misusing
that.
hammers,
I'm not saying
right?
that.
Somebody
Because
All I'm
might.
people
saying
use
it's a
him.
tool.
Somebody
It's
might
a
say that
tool.
though, right? Because hammers are being misused. Let's not use hammers. Hammers are bad because somebody died when somebody hit them across the head with a hammer, right? So one of the things is I might use a hammer. I used a hammer the other day to hammer in a roll for my printer, right? Generally, you're not thinking about using, right? You're not thinking about using it for a printer. You think about
Oh, that
using it for a
you
nail in the
tore that
wall.
damn that printer up. That's why that
No, no,
printer
no.
don't work today.
No, no. It actually needs to go on these rollers, right? So to put it in the roller, I have to take it off, put it on, and I got to tap it in real soft with the hammer. Now, if
Maybe
I
don't
had,
use
but
a
here's
hammer. You could use like the rubber. It's like a rubber mallet.
a
Mallet.
mallet, right?
Yeah.
You could use a
It's a
mallet. I was
formula.
Don't.
very
Yeah. Maybe
soft with
don't
my
use the
hammer,
hammer, girl. I
and I
don't
used
know.
the hammer.
Okay.
And here's the thing.
That's why your
Somebody
printer
else
don't
might
work.
not be able to use a hammer to put it in because they can't softly tap it. So we can use the same tool and not be able to use it correctly, right? That's an even better analogy because we could be using the same tool to do the same job and can't do it the same way. And so the fact that we have this tool and we don't use it the same doesn't mean to get rid of the tool. It means that we have to keep on trying to understand how to use this tool the best way and try not to hurt people with it,
Okay.
right? We tell people, don't hit nobody with hammers. We tell people, don't use the Bible as a reason to hate someone else. Use the Bible for yourself. Allow yourself to understand what's going on in the Bible. If you don't understand, that's fine. You can go over there and hate everybody in your house. Go ahead. Go hate somebody in your house, but don't come out here trying to hurt somebody because you misunderstand what's in the Bible.
Yeah,
I think that's
let's
what
leave
it
the Bible
is.
alone. Let's leave the Bible alone. Let's talk about the church, because
Black
that's
churches.
that's the church, the black churches. We've
So the
been
next one that we
explained
were going to talk about was LGBTQ in the black churches.
exactly the doctrine that was taught to us. Now we gotta reverse what was taught to us. We was told growing up. I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't have to grow up in the church, but I was told that don't fly. That don't fly, okay? And that was a very solid doctrine that was in a lot of black households. A lot, okay? And the church told us. The church told us this. You thou shalt not do this. That's not good, right? Now we got to backpedal and say it's okay.
Was the Bible around when Rome was up?
Yes, I believe
Yeah,
so.
just wondering because a lot of things I read about Rome and stuff, they had gay people.
So
I
the
think
Bible mentions a couple of times when they were people who were with the same gender,
And it wasn't a
and
problem.
I so
Christianity,
people
a faction, a section, deemed that inappropriate. Okay,
Was it just the black
well
churches or the white churches too?
white churches.
churches in
That's
general because
Christianity.
it
Christianity.
God bless
Christianity.
you.
Bless
Christian.
you.
Right? It was taught Christianity based on
So
Christ.
all of them, no matter where it came from, all religions say it's wrong.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
not all religions, but a lot of
Majority.
religions.
Even
Yeah.
in Muslim culture, that is a no-no. So all across the board in pretty much all the religions, homosexuality was deemed inappropriate. Okay?
How could something so good be wrong?
So
Lord.
it does
Oh
say
Lord.
it does say multiple times in the Bible about people lying with like their somebody of the same gender, and that it's about an abomination. But it also talks about the fact that we still love our brother, and that if you think that they are sinning, you just get away from them. Like you, so the problem is to me not that people don't believe that you should
They
do it.
wasn't getting away, they was killing them.
I don't remember reading that's an
So
abomination necessarily. I read
it,
about like the ones that were in the field and they lied together and one disappeared, but it didn't necessarily say anything about it being an abomination. But people could disappear. A heterosexual couple could do the same, be laying in the field and one disappear. So that's confusing. I don't remember reading about the abomination. Can you tell me where that is in the either church?
Leviticus. So and
Leviticus.
I was looking it up because I read it. Like I said, I've been reading the Bible from the beginning just to get a better understanding. In Leviticus, it says which state that it is an abomination for a man to lie with another man as he would with a woman. So, um, and it says it a couple of different times, but that's the thing. If you believe that, you just leave them alone, and the Bible like will tell you so many times
Don't
if
judge
you
others.
like don't judge others, love your neighbor, doesn't matter what he did, it's not up to you to judge. Judging is not yours.
Plus, every sin is
Over and
as
over and
great as the
over.
next. So if you lie, you're just as bad as the person that laid with the woman. Just saying.
This goes back to the similarities of when we as black people was indoctrinated based on certain scriptures. Okay? We were told it's the same thing when it came, it was based on morality. Okay? And morality is a tool that was used to keep us in line. Do not do this, do this. Okay? And a lot of those tools was based off of Christian indoctrine. Okay? The rules. We are not supposed to do this. Being homosexual is in the Bible, so don't do it. Okay? They cherry picked certain things that we're supposed to live by, moral codes. You see what I'm saying? Different things. So the homosexual community was banned, because per the Bible, we was taught by the Bible is not the way to be based on morality. Okay. And that was the same thing for us, for our ancestors. Okay. It was taught to us certain rules, submission, obedience. Okay. Anything else other outside of what we was taught was wrong. The same, it's the same
But
thing.
what if he only felt that way originally because he wanted to populate the Earth? The Earth is really overpopulated now. So is it really necessary to stay with just. That's another conversation. Never mind.
That is another conversation because I until I read through the entire Bible myself, because like I said, I didn't realize that almost all of the Old Testament is war, and it's talking about things that happened during war, and it's also talking specifically to Israel. So some of the things that people say are part of what we should and shouldn't be doing. He wasn't even talking to us. He was talking specifically to Israel, or he was specifically talking to one person.
Okay. That brings up a good point. Why are we in other people's business? If he was talking specifically to the Israelites, okay, or the Philippians, why are we in their business? Talk about now we got to do exactly like that's crazy to me. Why? Like we
Is
just
that a
over here
form of
reading other
gossip?
people's mail.
Because
We
they
just
want
reading other people's
I
mail.
don't
control.
know.
It's a form of control. It's a
Dang it,
form
you
of
So
might could be
later
control.
right.
on in the Bible, he is talking to everybody. But like in the beginning, like in certain times, he was like, the Israelites, you do this. And he wasn't talking to everybody. So like, so there are certain things in the Bible that he wasn't talking to everybody. And he would say specifically, hey, Moses, I'm talking to you. And you're going to do that. So there are things in the Bible that he specifically says to one person, and he's not talking to
Kind of like how
everybody.
he said, "Thou shalt not kill," and then ordered several people to kill their children.
Said specifically, thou shalt not murder,
I
and
don't
that's
know. I
why
don't
you could
remember.
go. I don't know.
Yeah,
But also,
because
that's the
there he
thing. There's
even set up
different
sanctuary
translations
cities.
too.
Sanctuary cities are from the Bible.
Yeah.
Sanctuary cities.
Yeah, sanctuary cities. So if you in the Bible is so he and I'll be very short. So he basically set up like if you kill your neighbor by mistake, we're going to set up these sanctuary cities. If you kill him by mistake, or if you kill him because you're defending yourself, you can go to a sanctuary city and can't nobody kill you. Can't nobody come after you. You stay in that city until you die. Now, if you leave that city, there are
It's
judges from the other place. That's it. Sorry.
it's on you.
Like the sanctuary
Whoa.
cities are from the Bible. Yeah. So
Kind of like
you
the
gotta.
realms from Sandman, but never mind. Okay.
Let me ask y'all a
It's a
question.
TV show.
All the mayhem that's going on right now as we speak. Back in
Mm.
the day, if things was disobeyed, it was like instant karma right there, right then and there. Like all the mayhem that's going on right now as we speak in the United States.
I mean, I don't think it
She
was always
said,
instant
she
karma.
said,
The
where are you
devil's
at?
alive.
Why were you
I
looking
don't
up
think it was
there? Why are
always
you looking up
instant
there?
karma because in the Bible, so here's one thing that I was thinking about recently. In the Bible, sometimes you were like your father did something really great, and he would and God would tell like he would be like your children are going to be blessed, and then you would be a crappy person and you do something really against the word of God, and he'd be like, I told your daddy that I was going to bless you. So your children are not going to be blessed. Your children are going to go through it because of what you did. So I think that part of this might be because of that. Like we done had like I do think that like
He
some
was
of this stuff
there.
is exactly. I wasn't there. There was a somebody who was serving somebody who like uh he basically didn't want to take money for something that he did in the word of God. His servant went and he healed a leper, and his servant went and took the money anyway. His servant came back. He was like, did you take that money? Did you go out and do something I told you what you weren't supposed to do? He denied it. He was like, so you are going to be a leper, and so are all of your kids going to be like your whole bloodline is going to be a leper.
Dang.
You're all of you going to be leprous. So
Wouldn't
like
you just at that point say no more children? Like, come on, man.
you
Yeah,
would want to say that,
stop
but he
being
might already
selfish.
have had children. I don't know, but
Have all them
like
kids.
I'm saying it's not just like immediate in the Bible. Some of them stuff in the Bible, like David and
Trickle
Goliath, people
down.
don't think about the fact he was a king and he did something, and his kids were blessed because of some of the stuff that he did, and some of the stuff that because he was so blessed, his kids were able to escape some stuff, but then it got put on their kids. So that there is
Okay.
that.
I thought Jesus came
It's
and
some
paid the
crazy
price
stuff.
for all of this, though. So I don't know. I thought Jesus paid the
Yeah, but
price.
he only paid the price for those who actually ask for
Who
salvation
those who
and give their
believe.
spirit over. So if you
Yeah.
don't believe, then you're still apparently going to burn.
Oh, you know what? You're
But
right.
You have to make the
the confusing
choice.
thing about that is I read in one part that children are supposed to be innocent, but then I heard a pastor say that children are born evil and if they die, they instantly go to hell. See, that's why the interpretation
No.
is so
That's
confusing.
crazy. Yeah, that's
I was
crazy.
so shocked. I was like, wait, I always
I've
heard that
never
children are
heard that.
innocent. That's
I've
just
never heard
terrible.
that.
I've
That's
Yeah, well,
also
it
never
insane.
just
heard
depends
that.
on the church you go to, huh? Sound
That's
like
why I
there's a
said some people
community
be
church. I haven't gone back. They didn't do
Good,
fellowship anyway. I like
good.
fellowship. It's ingrained in me. I like the fellowship part. You hug, you kiss, you
yeah,
eat.
that's
There's no fellowship. I don't know what to do at church.
I know
Just
that's
only
right.
listen to the word and go home. It's weird. But
I know
anyways,
that's right. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers.
yeah,
I've never read the Bible cover to cover.
Me
I
neither.
set out to do it before, but I never quite completed it. But what I will say is, I'm very leery of anything or anybody that tries to like put necessarily control over me. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it is important to read for yourself
Yep.
and make sure you're listening to trusted sources because
Mm-hmm.
pastors can say whatever they want to say, as Farrah clearly just demonstrated, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So go to the source, whatever your faith or religion is, make sure you're communing, right? Make sure you're reading your scripture, your holy word. Don't rely on other people to tell you what's in there. You got to look for yourself. And if something doesn't feel right, it's probably because it isn't right. Now, if you are giving faithfully month after month, year after year, and you can't rely on your church to help you out
Yep.
in a time of
Yep.
need, that's probably a sign. If it
Yep.
don't feel right, it's probably because it's not right.
Yep.
Somebody else, there's a couple of people that did like a social experiment recently where they tried calling the church and said, "Hey, I'm having a hard time. Can you give me some money?" And all the churches said no. Another young lady, she went ahead and decided she's going to try calling, "Hey, I
She
can't
needs some
feed my
diapers.
daughter. Can you give me
Mm-hmm.
some formula or some diapers?"
Mm-hmm.
And a majority of the churches said no. There was a
Mm-hmm.
mosque that said yes. They said, "Come on down. We'll have formula. Tell me what time you can be here. We'll have the formula waiting for you."
Yep.
That's what a church is supposed to look like, in my opinion.
I
That's
agree.
what a church is supposed to look like based on what I've read in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So
So
anything
it
short of
even
that, I'm
yeah.
always super suspicious.
Yeah,
and
I
don't
I
forget,
wouldn't say
guys,
that the whole just
pastors are
giving
just human.
money, that's
They make
something different.
mistakes.
Just like, "Hey, give me some money, you're a church." That's one thing I wouldn't say that's kinda crazy, but I mean, yeah, just like, "Hey, you're supposed to help," like, "Hey, I have this light bill," and you have a something set up to help people with their light bill, that's different. Like, I
Well,
do
that's
think
something I never
But
like,
got about
that
churches
is
some
a
of the places
program
though.
I
Cause why
mean,
does it have to be about to cut off? Why can't it just be 1 month behind? When I used to
some of them are 1 month
sometimes have
behind, like,
problems when I was
that's
younger.
it.
No, they want it to be on the red part, like about to get cut off. Unless it's about to get cut off, they can't help you. How come? How come it can't just be 1 month behind and you help me catch up so that I don't get to the red line or pink slip or whatever it's
That
called
depends on the
nowadays?
church. It depends on the church, because there are churches that will, like, as long as you're 1 month behind, they'll help. Yeah, there are a lot of community outreaches that only help if you have, like, a cutoff notice, and I assume
Okay.
my only assumption with that is that the volume of people that they need to help, they wanna help the people who are in the most dire straits, but I don't know. That is my assumption, is that the people in the most dire straits are the ones that they need to help first, and then, of course, you run out of money at some point.
Well, I would love to create some type of community where anybody could get help regardless of religion or color or anything. If I could do anything in life besides being a mother, it would be creating some type of something like Sacred Heart. When I lived in California, there was a place called Sacred Heart, and they helped any and everybody. I don't know if they were part of a church or not, to tell you the truth, but I know that I was homeless when I lived in California, and they even gave you tokens to go sleep in an actual hotel if the homeless shelters were full. That blew my mind. They don't know how much they helped me. I don't know if they're still open or not because it's like 20 years ago, literally like 2007 maybe. But these people, they gave they gave you outfits for interviews. They gave you money for electric bill. They
Yeah.
gave you tokens for a hotel. And I don't know if they still have stuff like that, but I would love to create something like that here in Florida because I know for a fact there's nothing like that here in Florida. But it would be really nice to be able to feed a homeless person. And right now I do little stuff,
It's against
but
the law now. Most churches that try to
to
do
help
stuff like
homeless
that,
people?
yes,
No, the church
there
can.
is
So
certain places where if
the
you
church
try to do
can, but you can't do
outreach
it
for
individually.
homeless people, the
That's just
churches
sad.
or individuals they get fined because
Churches can do it.
the government will see as you're feeding the situation, you making it worse, feeding homeless. Well, you know, don't
So
do that.
churches can do it, individuals can't. So churches can still do it.
Oh, churches can still
Individuals
do
So
it.
you
cannot
mean
do
if
it
I sit there and
in
have my
many
bags like I
states.
used to in my car, then I would get in trouble?
In most
Well,
states.
dear
So it
Jesus,
well not
help
I
us.
won't say most states, but Florida is definitely one of them that you're not supposed to feed the homeless. It is against the law.
What?
So many states is against it. But churches can still give. Churches can give, but they
Well, in that
you
case,
can't
we
do
need
it
to
as
go
an
ahead and buy
individual
some
here.
land and start one of those communities, like where all the homeless could be a part of the community. You can farm. What can you do? You a lawyer? Help this person. We need to build some type of community like that because that's just really sad. Sorry,
It is.
it's just
It is a really
wow.
it's a really sad
You
state of
don't
things
think that there's
when
plenty of
that's used
people
against
like
people.
you, Pharaoh? That. What are you talking about right now? There's been
Just
plenty
want to help
of
people.
there's been a lot of people that think like you. You know, you your thought process is already out there, but you got a lot.
Well, you guys come on and comment so we can make something because that's just terrible to be to get in trouble for helping somebody.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And you know what? I think it's better when I'm ignorant because when I find out stuff, it's just so sad.
It's so upsetting. Yes. They do say that.
That's
Ignorance
why I
is
like to
bliss.
stay in my own little bubble.
Oh, Pharaoh.
No,
I just didn't know that. And I'm still
it's
doing it, so
important
I'll
thing to
probably
know.
get in trouble.
I
You gotta
look.
do it
I have some
I
sneakily.
in my
do it.
car.
I do it all the time. I do it all the
Same.
time. Still,
What do you
I
mean
gave
if
it.
somebody
I did
walks
it a
up and
couple of days
tells me,
ago.
especially the pregnant women? Oh my God, how can you not help a pregnant woman? You're gonna get a sty in your eye. Keep playing.
Just
Yes,
stop.
I know I'm trying to make a joke out of it, but
Right.
that's just
Well,
terrible.
the last question that we had was, what do you think the church is doing well, and what do you think they could do better?
The churches are bringing some people together very well. A lot of places that they come together, they congregate, they're doing that very well. Actually try to bring everybody together, not just
Stop
certain
judging
people.
people.
MLK said, Martin Luther King Jr. said that the most segregated time in America is on Sunday mornings because all the white people are going to white churches, all the black people are going to black churches, all the Hispanic people are going to Hispanic churches. I think we should be focusing on bringing everybody together.
I
Your
would
church
say that's
shouldn't
what I
look like
love
a
about my
social
church because
club.
it is very, very ethnic. There's all kinds
Very
of people,
diverse.
Haitians, white, Hispanic, it don't matter. Everybody's welcome. And again, I'm not going to say the name of the church because I don't know if they want to be. Well, I don't know because they're all over Facebook and they have all kinds of podcasts
Don't
and
say the
stuff. So
name
maybe they
because
will like
somebody
it.
might go there trying to just find you specifically, Farrah.
Faith
Don't say the name.
Celebration Church. It is an amazing church.
I'm assuming there must be a
Look it
delay.
up. Faith Celebration. And our bishop is amazing. Not that I've never visited other communities on online because I recently started trying to look at this Haitian church. I can't really remember the name of it, but I don't speak French. But it's Black community. Oh,
What do you think
gotcha.
the black church can do better?
Stop
Financial
judging people.
transparency. Financial transparency, so where the congregations don't feel like they're being exploited. So they
Ooh,
won't
that's a good
feel
one.
that their money is going towards their pastors' Louis Vuitton shoes and Bugatti and all these gospel prosperity teachings. Open them books. Where's the money going towards? On a
That's
monthly
a good
basis,
one.
you
I
know?
want to know. I want to see. I want to take a little looky look.
Yeah. Where's
Okay.
the money
So what
going?
do you think they're doing well?
what they doing well, I don't know. I'm not in church.
I can't stand you, Autumn. I can't stand you so much.
I think that relationship advice shouldn't be exclusive to married people because nobody's supposed to be rushed to forced to be married, but regular relationships need advice too. So I've been married. It was a really, really difficult marriage. And as much as I want to be married again and I want to live in God's name, it's difficult. It's difficult to jump into another marriage.
So give people hope.
So
Continue to give people
yes,
hope. Continue to
yes.
give people hope when
Feed
life.
me the hope so that way one day I will be fully nourished. So
Okay. And so what I think that Black churches generally do well, um, is even in times that we are not cohesive as a nation and as the outside of our communities, we come together as a community to support a single goal. So I do think that it allows us to come together in places and uplift our spirits. So even back to slavery times, there are people that just got through with being able to understand that there was somebody that was in their corner regardless of anything, even when they felt so alone. They were like, God's here for me. God died for me, and you can't make me feel lesser than, because he died for me. So what I think that we could do better is cherry picking the Bible. So one of the things that I very much get very wary about is when you go to a church and they say one verse of the Bible and then that's the entire sermon. If you can't read from the Bible and tell me through like a whole section, like it, because context is important. If you're using pieces of the Bible out of context, then I feel like that's the problem. So I do think being contextually accurate with the piece of the Bible that you are quoting and that you're using as part of your scripture, and having people understand um, where things are coming from, and not just like cherry picking and using it against people, um, and being really really clear with congregations that it is important that just because you believe it doesn't mean you force it on other people.
That mean they need to do
Doesn't mean that
teaching
you judge
critical
other people.
thinking alongside
That's
faith.
the point. That's the
Teach
point
critical thinking
is
alongside faith.
yes.
Okay.
actually, recently I heard of theology books for children so that because a lot of children when they're growing up, you're taught to believe in God no matter what, but instead of believing no matter what, they've recently started to teach why as well. So
Yes.
that way,
They
when
have
you get to
understand.
be an adult, you don't just become an atheist because you were like, well, you can't answer the questions like, well, why do you believe in Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
There is a why, there is a when, there's a how. You should be able to check all those boxes. So
Hmm.
that's a pretty good thing to incorporate into all churches, not just African American churches, but into any church.
Don't
Don't just
follow
teach your children that you have to just believe.
follow
Question your
blindly.
faith
Yeah.
because questions are part of it.
Yep.
Don't follow anything blindly. You should be able to question and answer those questions. So I recently bought a bunch of books that are questioning faith so that way I can be able to answer those. Cause even though I am one of those people who just follows blindly, my daughter may not be. And I want her to be able to answer, well, why do you believe in God? For me, it's just because he's a God. What do you mean? He's God. Like, come on. But I, there are some people who need that. So that might be something that could be taught in all churches.
Yeah, because people misuse the scripture. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. So, is the substance of things hoped for. That doesn't mean that you just blindly believe it. You understand what you're standing on, but it's also the evidence that even though I don't see it, I can still believe it. So I think that is misused so much that it really is rather unfortunate.
Also, can we add addressing mental health issues? Um
Mm,
We deal with the spiritual aspect, feeding our spirit. We go to church to feed our spirit, to feed our soul. But if this is not functioning properly up here, then what are you doing?
yeah.
There's a lot of people that's walking around here with mental illness, and they're teaching wrong things or doing wrong things, and a lot of it is like, well, it's based in the Bible. So
Community support. Community support has to be there.
you know
So part of that community support is people who are having trouble with mental illness and
yep.
and with physical illness and all those things, and it's all part and parcel. If they're ensconced in the community, they are there for whole person community support,
Mm-hmm.
not just did you read
The
your Bible
whole
today?
body, the
No?
body as a
Okay,
whole.
go back and read your Bible and then come back if they're having a
Yes, I
problem.
hate that. Oh
It's
my
not.
God. The Bible does not have all the answers. It don't.
It's kind of like when we talked about how people expect things at a certain age, but just because you're a certain age doesn't mean you don't feel something. So I think Keisha had made that point before that sometimes, you expect certain people to act your age, but not everybody can because, like with me, I didn't have all these extra hormonal shifts until I got older. So I really didn't understand what other women were going through until I got older. And now my hormones are going ridiculously crazy and I can barely control myself half the time. And it takes the people around me being more understanding for me to even get through a day because half the time I'm flying off the handle and don't even know why. And if I don't have some form of support, then me flying off the handle is just me flying off the handle. There's no bringing me back. There's no, well, Farrah, just calm down because you're in your 40s. That don't mean because at the end of the day, my hormones are going crazy. So I could be thinking in the back of my head that I need to calm down, but my mouth is doing something different than what my brain is thinking. And we need that spiritual guidance to help us with things like that because I most of the time when I'm flying off the handle, I'm saying a prayer in the back of my head to come back to reality. But there is no reality because this is my reality. You know what I mean? I know it sounds confusing, but
Community.
that's
And
part of being a woman.
I
Community.
I have the opposite thought process from Autumn. I think all the answers are in the Bible. It's just that we don't use it properly. It is a tool that is misused so often, and the answers are there. We just don't choose to use it.
But what
So
what does the Bible say about mental health? What does the Bible say about suffering from schizophrenia or bipolar disorder? Or
So
what does it
a
say
lot
about
of a
that?
lot of the Bible doesn't specify like specifically bipolar disorder. I think it does talk about mental illness though. And it talks about the church supporting communities. And so we can't limit that, say, oh no, it didn't specifically say schizophrenia though. So not that one. That's not that I think is the important piece, is that if it's talking about the pastor guiding the flock for people to be understood and to people to be supported, it doesn't stop because there is an anomaly. And so that I think is the bigger piece, is that love your neighbor. It's sort of almost an all-encompassing order. Love your neighbor. It doesn't matter if he's got schizophrenia. It doesn't matter if he has one leg. It doesn't matter if every day he says, hey, and it
Let
annoys
me
you.
ask you a question,
Still love
Jess.
your neighbor.
Does
Hmm?
the leadership of this country love thy neighbor?
I don't think he's a Christian. So it doesn't matter. It just because we've got a devil in chief doesn't matter. Like that doesn't change what the Bible says.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless
Thank
you.
you.
God
Bless
bless
you,
you.
goddess. Bless you. Okay.
I received those blessings. Thank you. Thank
But
you.
just because you don't think he's a Christian doesn't mean that he's not following Christian theology. Okay? He is cherry picking, and the crazy part is the majority of his constituents The majority of his followers are what? Conservative people who follow the teachings of the Bible, right?
No,
So the
no,
love thy
no,
neighbor,
not at all.
that
Just
but
because
that's your
they say they're
opinion,
Christians
Jess.
doesn't mean
That's
they
your
follow the
opinion.
Bible.
That's your opinion.
No, that's
Okay.
not an opinion. Just because other people who follow the Bible, other people who are Christians will tell you that they're not people who follow the Bible. And even Christians who say that they are Christians will say, hey, I know this is in the Bible, but no. That's where you go
It
wrong.
goes to
If you say but,
interpretation.
that means that you're negating what you said before that.
It goes
So
to
kind
That's
of
what
like
but
Sunday
is.
only Christians.
Sunday only Christians. Exactly that. If you say, I know this is in the Bible, but what word is but? But is negating what you said before that. So if you are saying, I know that God said love my neighbor all the time, no matter what, but they come from Canada and I don't really like Canadians. You
How
just
could you not
negated
like
what you
No,
said,
Canadians?
no shade
They're
to
so
Canada.
lovable.
No
right?
shade to Canada.
No shade to Canada, but I'm saying if that's what you said, then you were negating what you started with. I'm a
look,
Christian and I know this is what God said. I'm not doing what he said though.
this country was formed on Christian values, right? Christian
And we
values.
also had the separation of
In
church and
God we
state.
trust.
Okay.
And
Christian values.
we also had the separation of church and state. The
Th-
forefathers specifically had the separation of church and state because they were driven here because of religious persecution. So this was not even supposed to be a thing. And then it became a thing because the country didn't live up to the values that it was founded upon. So that's why we're here, is because religious persecution happened. They came here, persecuted other people, and then we're like, we're not going to let this happen again. We're going to bake it into our laws that religious persecution can't happen because we're going to separate church and state. But then that didn't actually happen.
Look,
So that's why we're here. That's how we got here. So I hear what
I
you're saying.
always thought it
I'm
was because
saying
he
that,
got bored
right?
of his hometown. Just a joke.
Nah.
Sorry. A lot of people move
But
because they don't feel like staying there.
but yeah, so that I feel like that's what we could do better is actually listen to the thing that we profess to be. If you profess to be a Christian, listen to what you're saying and do what it is you say you profess that you're following. Because if you're not, don't claim it.
I mean,
Don't claim something that you're not actually doing.
as long as you believe in Christ and you ask for salvation, you're a Christian. The rest is because we're human. So we're human and we all should work to grow. But I don't think it's necessarily that you're not trying to be a Christian. I mean, unless you're blatantly just like fuck God's laws. But even as a Christian woman myself,
Lord.
I'm a pretty terrible person sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But let's not get into this. Anyway,
use critical
it's
thinking.
confusing.
Use critical thinking as you move along the religion theology. Use your brain and put it together. I'm not saying don't use the Bible, okay, but also use common sense, have discernment, okay, and have it all come together and
Sermon's a good
live
one.
your best life. Live your best life, okay? Because everything is like by the Bible, by the Bible. Well, the Bible said this, the Bible said that. The Bible said a whole lot of bad things too, as well, okay? So you got to use critical thinking, all right? Discernment, okay? And at the end of the day, be a good human being. If you got to learn
That's what
that
I was
from the
thinking.
Bible, if the Bible got to teach you that, something is wrong with you. Be a good human being at the end of the day. Regardless of what the Bible says, be a good human being. Period.
Try to treat people as you want to be treated.
Period.
That's the best way. I mean, I don't want to fly off the handle, and I feel bad that I fly off the handle because I'm only human. But I actually do actively try to treat people good. Just, sometimes my emotions get in the way, but I do recognize it. I don't always say I recognize it, but I do recognize it.
And black people,
I don't
our fellow black
I don't
people,
think
please stop feeling like you use your look. I love the black church. I really do. It's a beautiful thing. But I don't like where we get exploited. And we've been exploited for a very long time. Not just our people, but other people that come into our community, okay, and say that they have our best interests at heart. Use discernment. Okay. If we are going to these mega churches and they taking in, they siphoning our energy, siphoning our money, and they're not giving back to us, not giving back to the community. That should raise eyebrows. That should raise eyebrows. Okay? Please, the Bible is a great guide, but also use your brain and your spirit to know that, hey,
And teach your children to.
this is not good. This is not good. We need to stop following things blindly, because that's what we've been doing, and it leads us sometimes in the wrong way. Okay, and that's the way I feel about it. You know, I like to do good. I like to do good for other people. I like to do good for my community. At the end of the day, be a good human being inside the church, outside the church. Period. I rest my case.
I would like
Here,
to say
here.
that for people who are Christians, it's okay if you say that the Bible is helping you to be a better person. But if you see things and choose to use the Bible to do bad, like understand
God
that
is not
you're,
pleased.
God is not pleased. That is
Amen.
not that was not his intent.
Amen.
And not only that, but, like y- you are making it worse for Christians, not better. So you're making more people who are not wanting to follow the Bible, not wanting to go to church because of this example that you're setting. So, all right, in this episode, we talked about Black churches, we talked about the community, we talked about a lot of hypocrisy that we see. We talked about how some mega churches are siphoning out of our communities, and how the difference between what we see is going on and um, what should be going on, and the things that we expect from our churches regarding our communities, and the assistance and support that we would like to see from our churches in the communities that they serve. We also talked about what prosperity gospel is, and really kind of got down a little bit into good and bad aspects of it. And we talked about what we thought that the church might be doing good, and stuff that we know is not going well. In the comments down below, give us your take. Maybe you have a reason why you left a church in your community, or that you are involved in a church in your community. Let us know what you think could be done better by churches in your community, and things that maybe you can do to make things better in the areas that you serve. Thanks again for coming with us on this journey, and we'll see you next